This slide deck video is going to provide you with some background information for the book, The Outsiders. It's going to give you a little bit of information about the author, some of the characters that you will be seeing, a background a little bit about the conflict that you can expect, as well as the settings, the time and place of the novel as well. So first, the author. The Outsiders was written by someone named S.E. Hinton, and this is S.E. Hinton. Her name was actually Suzanne Eloise Hinton. She was born in 1950 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She published The Outsiders in 1967 at the age of 17. So she began writing it at 15 and published it during her senior year of high school. She used a pseudonym, S.E. Hinton, because it was believed that people wouldn't read a book about feuding male gangs written by a female. In fact, J.K. Rowling, when she wrote Harry Potter, chose to use her initials for similar reasons. The Outsiders is widely considered the first realistic young adult novel, and the story was inspired by a real-life event in Hinton's high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Her books deal with teenagers facing problems such as poverty, rejection, violence, and drug and alcohol abuse. And although her youthful characters often reject the idea of authority, they always have a sense of hope. So a little bit about the conflict. There's going to be a conflict in this novel between two gangs, and you can see images of what you would expect from both gangs. One gang on this side, and the other one on this side. The greasers in the novel, the characters that are greasers are Ponyboy Curtis, Soda Pop Curtis, Derry Curtis, Johnny Cade, Dally Winston, Chewett Matthews, and Steve Randall. And you can see on the right-hand side here, these are the types of cars that traditionally you would expect greasers to have. On the other hand, the Socs, which is short for socials, drove these types of vehicles, a little flashier, a little bit more expensive. Those characters that you're going to meet that are Socs include Cherry Valance, Marcia, Bob Sheldon, and Randy Adderson. The book is set, the where and the when, in Oklahoma in the 1960s. You can see it right up here. Oklahoma is right above Texas. So in the Midwest. It is specifically Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1960, 1965, 66. You're going to see two sides to Tulsa. One is the west side, and those are the gas stations, the dreary streets, and the housing. On the poor side of town, that's where the greasers live. And then on the other side, on the east side, there are manicured lawns. There's upper middle class suburbia, and that's where the socials or Socs live. There are some common areas that you're going to see as well. Those are the schools, the drive-ins, and burger joints that are common ground. And just some information about the United States during this era. It had come out of sort of an innocence of the 1950s and into a time of great social and political change in the 60s. So things were changing. These are some of the hangouts. You have drive-in movie theaters. Some of you may have been to drive-in movie theaters before. You have also sort of drive-in burger places. And so these are kind of like in modern day, they'd be a Sonic, right? So you'd go, you'd order food, you'd go to your car, bring your car to a certain spot, and then someone would bring your food over, sometimes in roller skates, and you would hang out and eat there. On the bottom here, we remember that setting impacts expectation. And if you're going to be in the Midwest, you can expect that rodeos are going to be present. They do play a part in the novel. Some of the characters take part in rodeos, or they take part in competitions, or they work there. And these are some events. So you see barrel racing, right? You have the calf roping, bull riding, and of course, general competitions that occur as well. So the drive-in movie is going to be one of the earlier scenes in the novel where you're going to get to know some of the characters and understand their characteristics and some of the conflict between the Socs and the Greasers. And this is what a drive-in looks like. You would take your car and you would drive to a certain spot and you would turn your radio to a certain station, or they would bring you a speaker and you would get to watch the movie from your car. And these are extremely popular with both Socs and Greasers during this time. These are the cars. So you have the Ford Mustang and the Chevy Corvair. These get mentioned numerous times in the novel, usually driven by Socs, and they are referred to as what is called tough. Now, they don't mean tough as in strong, T-O-U-G-H. It's spelled tough, T-U-F-F, and it means cool. Here are some images of some of the musical artists from that era. It was an era in which music changed drastically too, and you had different types of music. Led Zeppelin came in sort of more in the later 60s, but you had things like the Monkees and the Jackson 5, things of that nature. Two specific musical artists that sort of were rivals at the time, much like the two gangs, were the Beatles and Elvis Presley. And you can see, just like we did with the two rival gangs, the Socs and the Greasers, one appealed to one demographic more than the other. So on this side, you have the Beatles, which are more clean cut, more preppy. They were appealed more to the Socs. And then you had Elvis over here, more of a tougher look, and he appealed more to the Greasers. Okay, so here are some movie posters. Take a minute, take a look. See, it was popular at the time. You had some musicals that were popular. You had a lot of beach films that were popular. You had a lot of bad boy films, sort of. You had these characters, these tough characters, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? You had Rebel Without a Cause. You have Cool Hand Luke. These were all very Easy Rider. These are all very popular at the time as well. James Bond in the center there. One of the more popular movie stars of the 1960s was Paul Newman. He was quite famous. He was known for his startling blue eyes. In the 1960s, his most famous characters were all rebels or anti-heroes. And this means that he played characters who had some terrible qualities, but audiences were still drawn to them. They still admired them and rooted for him. You'll hear Ponyboy in the very opening lines of this book refer to Paul Newman. Here are some TV shows that were popular. Now, unlike today, where we can get our entertainment from a number of platforms, you didn't have that many options in the 1960s. There were a limited number of channels, and so everybody sort of watched the same television shows. And these were some of the ones that were most popular. You have the original Batman, the Beverly Hillbillies, the Twilight Zone, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Rocky and Bullwinkle over here, and the Flintstones were popular with kids. And because there were so few things to watch, a lot of people were able to find some common ground